Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, I am joined by my colleague, Mr. Evan Wanish of BucsNation.com and co-host of the Cannon Fire podcast. Evan, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little bit. How are you doing today?
It has been a little bit. I'm doing well. It's been a while since I joined you on a video like this, and happy to be back.
Absolutely. Happy to have you back because we have a very interesting topic to talk about. You are my resident expert on this topic. It is Byron Leftwich and his play calling, Evan. This has been something that a lot of people have been talking about. It's a yearly thing, I feel like, Byron Leftwich and his offensive play calling. There's been a lot of criticism revolving around the offense, especially in recent weeks. The Buccaneers just came off of a very disappointing loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people chalk that up to offensive play calling, something that people feel like it has been a problem throughout the entirety of this season. Evan, before we dive into the details of this offense and the play calling and whatnot, what are your general thoughts on Byron Leftwich and his offensive play calling so far up to this point?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the season so far, the Bucks haven't had much difficulty in some games with moving the football. It's been when they get inside the 20, when they get inside that red zone, and they just can't really convert it. In Dallas, that was a big issue. They had to settle for too many field goals in Dallas once they got in the red zone. In New Orleans, they had a turnover in the red zone, and then again they had to settle for a field goal. Green Bay, their opening drive, they had to settle for a field goal, and then obviously it was really brought to light in Pittsburgh. So when they were 1 for 4 in the red zone against a defense that not only was not very good, but also was very banged up. Had all three of their starting corners down. Was also down Minka Fitzpatrick as well as T.J. Watt. But I think the play calling within inside the main hashes there and not in the red zone has been okay. It's just when they get in the red zone, I think they're overcomplicating things, and I think that they have to simplify things a bit more. At first, I think they were adjusting to the losses that they had on offense. I mean, people don't realize just how many new pieces the Bucks are trying to fit in. Losing Rob Gronkowski, Ali Marpet, Ryan Jensen, Alex Capita free agency, trying to work in guys like Russell Gage, Julio Jones, two really inexperienced guys along the interior of the offensive line, and Robert Hainsey and Luke Gedeke. And I just think that early on in the season, people gave the offense a little bit of slack. Like they cut them a little bit of slack, but now it's starting to become the same issues, and it's too many runs on first down. You're putting yourselves in 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7, too many times. The Bucks are brutal on third and longs, and they're only in so many third and longs because they're essentially wasting two downs. Especially like they're 32nd in the league in rushing. Like they're not a good running football team, and they keep trying to establish it too early, and it's getting them in these holes. So they need to find some sort of. They want to talk about balance. Well, you're going to need to find a balance that also includes playing to your strengths. Right now, the Bucks aren't doing that at all. They're not playing to their strengths, which is the pass game. They're, I believe, like seventh in the NFL in passing offense. So they're good at it. Like they have the weapons to do it. They have the quarterback to do it. The offensive line a little bit of a question mark. Yeah, that's something that Byron Leftwich's play calling can mask a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's personnel. So um, I just think the number one thing is first down. They're not winning consistently on first down, and that's hurting them on second and third.
So there's a lot to unpack there, right? A lot of different things to unpack there. And I want to start with this. One of your first points that you made, you talked about the red zone and how it's getting overcomplicated in the red zone that is resulting in the Buccaneers settling for field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. Really good example of that. The Bucks had two opportunities, Evan, two drives where they had first and goal from the Pittsburgh Steelers 4 yard line in two separate occasions in last week's game. Both of those drives resulted in field goals. So when you say the Buccaneers are overcomplicating things in the red zone, what specifically do you mean for that, and how can it get corrected?
I think a lot of this comes from sort of the lack of personnel that you have. Losing Rob Gronkowski in the red zone, I think, is really evident. Um, but I mean, you got a 6'5" wide receiver, Mike Evans, and he doesn't get targeted once really in the red zone. So, eh, sometimes it's just as simple as throwing it up and hoping he gets a 50-50 ball. To me, it's getting too complicated. The pre-snap penalties that are killing them in the red zone keep pushing them back. It just seems like they're trying to do too much and trying to get a little too fancy, and it's just hurting them because the pre-snap penalties when you're down there in the red zone cannot happen. That's a good way to kill a drive. Almost definitely going to kill that drive if you have to keep pushing yourself back. And I mean, also, Tristan Wirfs had a illegal man down the field penalty as well, which also set the Buccaneers back. So I just think they need to, it's going to sound kind of dumb, but like they need to just get back to the basics of it. It's not as difficult as they're making it seem, not with the talent that they have. They have Chris Godwin, they have Mike Evans, they have Russell Gage, who's been disappointing. They need to be able to find a way to get these guys the ball when the field gets condensed and route trees get limited. That's where a guy like Mike Evans, who can win those 50-50 balls, he's 6'5". Like sometimes, like I said, it is just as simple as just throwing it up and hoping he gets it. They did it week 1 versus Dallas. They did it week 4 versus Kansas City. Both of them resulted in touchdowns. They didn't do it again though. So it's difficult. I just think they need to simplify it. And once they do, will the results magically change? No, probably not. But I think their best route is to get back to what they do best, and that's feed their playmakers the football. And right now, they're not doing that.
I gotcha. And then you also talked about the early down running with Leonard Fournette. You've talked about this before here on the channel, also on the Cannon Fire podcast, how the Buccaneers, they're one of the best, or they have the pieces and the ability to be one of the best passing teams in the entire NFL. You said that they're seventh in passing right now, whereas they rank 32nd in rushing. And a lot of people have been critical of what you pointed out, the Bucs running on first down, maybe getting 2, 3 yards, something along those lines, and then kind of stalling out very quickly in their drives after that. So you talked about balance. Where do you see the run game being most effective if it isn't necessarily on that first down runs? Where do you kind of see that run game doing better for Byron Leftwich and his play calling, and then also showing a little bit more balance while playing to that passing strength that you talked about?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing because right now, I don't know the exact stats, but like the Bucks have to be one of the worst teams in the league when it comes to 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 situations where you just got to get it right. It seems like it is such a chore for them to be able to gain a yard. I mean, they tried a Brady quarterback sneak on a 3rd and 1, and it lost yards. And I believe they converted that 4th down, but it lost yards there, and that's where I think some of that is more personnel wise, because they don't have as much of a push from their interior that they used to have. I mean, you're talking about a Pro Bowl center and Pro Bowl left guard you're trying to replace with 2 inexperienced guys. So as far as the play calling goes of when you can mix in the run game, yes, you have to mix in a run game. You can't have Brady throwing the ball 60 times, especially the offensive line sometimes can't hold up, which we've seen that it can't. So I think the best thing is, one, get creative with the runs. They're not creative enough. Too many of the runs are the exact same thing. Too many of them are kind of right up the middle, right to the heart of the defense. They're running behind Luke Gedeke, who is struggling. So first down, you gain 7 yards on first down. You set up a 2nd and 3. That is much better to get with on the ground if you want to, because that also establishes play action and stuff. So that is much easier to get on the ground 3 yards rather than trying to get, because right now it's just not working on first down. You are putting yourself in too many bad situations. So I'm not saying that you have to pass every first down and you have to convert that with 10, 11 yards. But even if you get 5 yards, like that's a win on first down. You're trying to set yourself up just to get it shorter. And if the Buccaneers aren't going to be as explosive as they have been in the past years, which so far the evidence that we have is that they're not going to be, because the downfield passing just has not been there. They're going to need their run game to be better in short yardage situations, or else they might be forced to pass every time, because I think that's the best case scenario, that you can pass on first down, and then that sets up the run game for when you only need 2 or 3 yards to gain that first down. But the thing is, if you're still not successful with that, it won't matter. So it's all that comes down to more execution as well.
Yeah, so kind of more the idea of a short passing game in the early downs can kind of set you up in better situations running the ball later on in the drive is what you're kind of suggesting there a little bit.
Yeah, it's all about situations and what you put yourself in. Right now, the Bucs are bad on third down because they're facing a lot of 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and it's because what happens is they'll run it with Leonard Fournette for 3 yards. They'll throw an incompletion on second down, and then next thing you know, it's third down. That happened really on their opening drive of the ball game last Sunday, and it didn't work. And consistently against the Steelers, when a team is keying in on the run, it's not going to work. And part of that has to do with them not really having a vertical offense right now. Teams are able to just really press on that run and be able to bump the receivers at the line because they know the Bucs aren't stretching out the field. So part of it all goes hand in hand, right? In offense, it all goes hand in hand. But I think right now the biggest thing that they're doing it to themselves, like they're setting themselves up in these poor situations, because they're trying to be this running football team to establish it. But if it's not working, you got to go to something else. And it's clear that the pass has worked better for them this season.
And two other things you talked about here, which definitely play a factor into it as well, is personnel and execution. Me and you have both talked about this off, video where guys just feel like they're being used in a lot of weird roles right now. Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, those guys are used in kind of weird situations that might not always show their strengths, I guess you can say, in the offense. So, kind of, what are your thoughts on the offensive personnel, execution, and all these different types of things regarding Leftwich and his play calling? Does that play a big factor into it that maybe makes Leftwich's play calling not look as good, the execution of it from the players? Or is it Leftwich maybe not putting his players in the best position to succeed because of the plays that he calls?
Well, I think it's a little bit of all three, execution, play calling, and then just designs and schemes. Execution obviously isn't really on Byron Leftwich. The Byron Leftwich can't go out there and catch the ball. He can't go out there and block for him. So, like, the players need to execute. However, the offensive coordinator, and the entire game plan needs to put them in better situations to do so. And, when I talk about how Godwin and Gage and stuff are in some weird spots, we talked about it last night a little bit, but Chris Godwin, used to move around the field and be like a really big weapon for this Bucs offense, and at times was like the most important piece that the Bucs offense had. Like if they were without Chris Godwin, the offense looked completely different. Um, whether it was screens or slants, or he was really the chain mover. Now it seems like they basically have him do the same thing, which is go right over the middle about 7, 8 yards, stop and hit like a curl route and just stand there. He gets tackled short of the sticks, and then the Bucs are faced with third down. Again, a few times in Pittsburgh, he went over the middle for a couple of nice gains, a 28-yarder, which was the long of the day. But it just Godwin can do so much more. And I don't know if it's because of the injury. Maybe they're still playing a little bit cautious, but like he's playing a ton. Um, so I don't know, but it seems like his role now is just so limited in what his ability actually is, and I don't think they're taking advantage of it. As far as Russell Gage, I don't know exactly what his ability is because he was limited in Atlanta until really last year. But like we also don't know what it is because we haven't seen him enough. And sometimes, the quarterback decides where the ball goes. Gage has been open a few other times, and the ball just hasn't gotten to him. But it feels like even a guy like Gage could be used as like that chain mover type. Maybe he's the guy on first down. Are you giving him a screen that he can get 5 or 6 yards to set you up better on second down? There's a lot of different ways that these guys can be used. I mean, Mike Evans was barely targeted in Pittsburgh. I feel like he's even a more athletic guy that people give him credit for. He can be used in different ways. Again, the Bucks are just not taking advantage of what they have. It seems like they're wasting it essentially, and they need to figure it out fast here.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and end off this conversation with this, right? Byron Leftwich isn't going anywhere. That's not gonna happen for anybody who's calling for that, folks. It's not gonna happen. Um, but let me ask you this, Evan. Do you see these issues, all the things that we've talked about in this video today? Do you see them continuing throughout the season, or do you feel like Byron Leftwich will be able to make those adjustments like we've honestly seen him do at times in the past whenever there's been criticism about his play calling? Do you see him being able to make those adjustments with some of these things that we talked about here?
Yeah, I do think there can be some adjustments made. The red zone one's a little bit more tricky because, like I said, the field's condensed. So if you're having red zone issues, it's tough to figure out different ways to do it because you're limited in what you can do. As far as like the first down thing, I do think he can. They can. Versus Kansas City. Now I know that game's probably more of an outlier because they were down for 90% of it. Um, and they really had to throw, but like they moved the ball well. Like the offense scored the most points that they did, right? I believe what they scored 31 points. So, the offense moved the ball well, and it was largely because they were passing the ball on first down. So I think that can change and that can get better. Their first down philosophy, throwing it a bit more and sort of putting themselves in better positions to run rather than I think your pass can set up the run. They're trying to set up the run so it can later set up the pass, and it's just not working. So I think that can change. I mean, but as far as like the other stuff, like Godwin engage, like I'm gonna have to see it until I believe it. And because right now just their roles are super weird. And I also, Gage has been limited in practice a lot with some injuries. I don't know if that's hurting him at all. Godwin, I don't know if they're still taking it cautious with him. So as far as like the roles and stuff for guys, I don't know. But like I think the biggest thing that Leftwich can do basically starting this week is just throw the ball more on first down. Does it have to be every first down? No, but it should be a lot of them because that is your offensive strength. You're not the Tennessee Titans, like you're not the Baltimore Ravens. You're not one of these teams that have great running schemes and can open up holes for the running backs and gain yardage that way. Can it happen occasionally? Yeah, and it has, but that's not the Bucs. And right now the Bucs lack an identity because of that. Do they want to be a running football team? Well, if they want to be a running football team, they're not playing to their strength, which is the pass game. So I think starting basically today, that's something that Leftwich can do better of is that first down balance there and setting the offense up in much better situations going forward.
For sure, for sure. So we'll have to wait and see what Byron Leftwich and the Buccaneers offense do to adjust. Like you said, Evan, it should be a very, very interesting situation to follow throughout the remainder of this season. Hey, thank you so much for being on, Evan. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Why don't you tell the folks where they can go check out your work?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter at EvanNFL. Check out my written work at BucsNation.com. And also check me out on the Cannon Fire podcast.
There you go. So, guys, let us know your thoughts and opinions about Byron Leftwich and his offensive play calling down in the comments section below. We would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, folks, we will see you in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.